All right. Another episode of Confessions of a Street Broker. Our first out-of-towner.
Really?
Making the journey. Yeah.
Honored.
Don't let a lot of out-of-towners in. I actually had some out-of-towners call us. Might set something up with them. Got to know
You
them
had
first.
some requests, some inbound requests.
Inbound requests.
Wow.
Brandon Avedikian. What's up, man?
Not a whole lot. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we tried to schedule this a while back. We couldn't get on dates, and then you got a mechanical piece put in your body, huh?
I sure did, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're pretty young to have your hip replaced, huh?
I am.
Yeah.
If you want to hear the story, I found out I had an issue in 2021. I got in a skiing accident.
Yeah.
And then I got an x-ray, thought I had hurt myself. So you didn't hurt yourself skiing, but you should get something checked out. So I go get an MRI. I had something on my hip. They're like, oh, you'll have to get your hip replaced eventually, but don't worry about it until it hurts. Just go on your merry way.
Mm-hmm.
So then in March of this year, I went back. I said, hey, it's too much. I'm ready to do whatever we need to do. So got my hip replaced. And then 2 weeks later, I found out it was a rare form of bone cancer. And so it's so low grade that they couldn't even tell in the MRIs.
Yeah.
And what it does is it turns bone to cartilage. So my hip was basically turning to soft tissue.
Yeah.
So that's why it hurt. And so whether it was cancerous or not, you just have to remove it.
Yeah.
So we're on our merry way now, but it's been a interesting journey to say the least.
Well, so you had it replaced, and then how was rehab? You still rehabbing, or are you done?
I mean, I'm doing more and more exercise. I'm playing golf tomorrow for the first time. I can walk normally.
Yeah.
I can jog a little bit, but yeah, the thing about, so hip replacements are highest satisfaction orthopedic surgery. And so you're pretty much, after about a year, you're pretty much back to normal.
Yeah.
And they just want you moving. Like they don't,
Yeah.
I'm doing some rehab stuff, but the doctors don't even necessarily suggest it or recommend it. They just, from the day you get home, which you go home right after, it's an outpatient these days.
Yeah.
They just want you moving.
Well, I guess on the cancer side, you couldn't be in a better place if you have to go to the doctor there. But
yeah.
I went to MD Anderson for 5 years, and I don't know if you've been there yet or anything.
Yeah.
It.
What were you doing there?
So I had malignant melanoma.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. My brother likes to call it the time I faked cancer. No, I had just a mole on my back, and then one time my wife was like, hey, that is getting funky. And I got had a doctor here in Dallas look at it. He says, hey, when you do an excision, so they, when you have that, they just go cut out a massive patch of skin. And it's on my back. And then while I'd gotten bitten by a tick, and it was just like a cyst on my back. I was like, hey, while you're in there, cut that thing out too. So my back, I look like I got in a knife fight. I got these pretty, makes you look tougher than I really am. Yeah. So it's kind of cool. Every time someone says, hey, what happened? I was like, oh, I got stabbed. And they're like, what? But what was interesting in Dallas, I had this doctor. He did melanoma and breast cancer, or I think melanoma and I don't know. Anyways, he took my lymph nodes out, tested them, said they're fine. He sent them off on a clinical trial, and he said, "Hey, your lymph nodes are positive for melanoma in this clinical trial, and you need to start interferon and all this. We're going to install a port in you and all this shit." And I was like, second and third opinion time.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a guy at Baylor here, and he's like, man, I would not do that yet. And then I went to MD Anderson, and they were like, hey, you don't need to do that. And
Are they up here too?
No. But I was like, hey, I ain't fucking around with this. Let's go to the experts. And it went to MD Anderson, and I noticed there my nurses were smarter than the doctors in Dallas. They were just so specialized. And they and the doctor down there, he said, hey man, that's a clinical trial. He goes, we don't diagnose off clinical trials. And he's like, what if it's a false positive? He goes, you're going to ruin your life. Like, you probably will never be able to have kids. Like, it's not good. So that's our joke is that our daughter's middle name should be Melanoma, because in that whole interim, I was like, man, we want to have another kid. We better get this knocked out. So I just made the decision to go to, they said, hey, we just want to monitor you. And so I went to MD Anderson every 6 months for 5 years, and then just monitored me. But I mean, talk about an efficient place. I mean, when it's time to go get, you go in and get blood work and chest X-ray. I mean, like, dude, if your appointment's at 9:30, I mean, at 9:30 they have the needle in you drawing blood. Like it, whereas I'd go to the doctor in Dallas and be like, gotta be an hour and a half late. I'm like, this is, we're all busy, you know what I mean? And
what was the testing experience like for you? Just like mentally,
the mental aspect of it was you don't get answers in your time. Like you're a patient, in your mind, you're the only patient. In their mind, you're like number 722.
Oh my, yeah.
And it's like, can I just get a fucking answer? And they're like, oh yeah, we'll call you in a week or so. You're like,
yeah, that's been one of the hardest parts of it.
Yeah. So
yeah, they want you to come back every few months, and then you take the test. And I just did my first like full on rigorous round, and everything came back clean.
Yeah.
But the time between when I got the test and got the clean results, it's hard to really describe how the mental warfare.
Well, when I first gotten told about it, one of the nurses called me and was like, hey, when they did the biopsy, they're like, hey, you need to be seen by a surgical oncologist immediately. And I was like, well, what's going on? She goes, I just can't tell you. I was like, no. They're like, oh, we want you to come in like 4 days. And I was like, well, wait
just
a second.
Hit me with it.
Yeah, come on. Well, she ended up telling me, I don't know if she told me, I don't know what she told me. She probably told me level 4. Well, in my mind, I'm like, 4. Okay, what is this? Well, so we look up 4 in cancer, and it was stage 4. So I'm like, I call my buddy, and I'm like, hey, look up stage 4. I swear to God, she told me stage 4. And I was like, look up stage 4 cancer. And I'm like driving down the freeway, and he's like, bro, you're dead. I was like, what? No way. I was like, I don't feel that bad.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they called me back, and they're like, hey, your appointment's not going to be for 2 more weeks. And I was like, well, hold up a minute. Like, if this is like, if we're, DEFCON 4, like, I need to get seen, and so it was terrible. I went home, sat my wife down. I go, hey, this is what they told me. She's like, what does that mean? I go, I just don't read the internet. Internet's bullshit. I go get us dinner. I come back to the house. She's in the fucking closet just bawling. Like, we got a 1.5-year-old and all this stuff. And so I wasn't too fazed by that. I was like, I would totally feel worse, right? So it ended up not being that. But I just went and got to another doctor within 2 days, because I was like, if you're not going to give me the answer I want, I'm going to go get it. And he was like, no, you're a level 4. It's very concerning, because that's where it drains into your lymph nodes. And that's when, it goes everywhere. So, anyways, that was a big part of it. And then I quit dipping in all of it because all they ever did was ask me if I dipped and smoked, like just constantly. You dip? Do you smoke? How many dips do you have? I was like, I used to dip a can of Copenhagen a day. I quit. Okay, I'm done. Like,
leave me alone.
Leave me alone. But when I got to MD Anderson, man, they just, and that's why I tell anybody now that has. Anybody I know that gets them like, hey, look, I know you're in Dallas and I know you probably got someone you like, but like, I'm just telling you,
that's literally all they do.
That's all they do. And man, they're good at it. And so, yeah, I just went there for 5 years and I didn't do anything and it worked out versus what this guy was going to do to me. I think this guy was getting paid for it because he started sending me on a bunch of PT scans and I think he owned part of the PT scan clinic. Because when MD Anderson got it, they're like, why is he having you do so many scans? I was like,
unbelievable.
So that was, but the biggest thing to understand was they just don't give you answers in the time you want. Yeah. And you just have to like.
You learn that, you learn that very quickly.
Yeah. And you just finally just got to be like, okay, forget it. I'm just going to go about life until y'all call me, or whatever. So. That's what I learned from it. But
yeah, I didn't know you went through that. Thanks for sharing. That's
the other thing I learned out of it is doctors are just humans.
Yeah,
don't put them on a pedestal. They're just humans. They make mistakes. They have affairs. They have drug habits. You know what I mean? You don't know what that person's really going through. So like, get second and third opinions always.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice.
Yeah. So, well. Okay,
we on to real estate. Talk about health issues. So
real estate. All right. Well, let's just. Okay, I don't even think I introduced you properly, but you're the founder of Aspire Commercial in Houston.
That is correct.
President, CEO.
Not a CEO yet.
Janitor.
Yeah,
probably janitor.
Definitely. Janitor has definitely been in my job description.
So, well, man, why don't we just start from the beginning? Like, where'd you grow up? Where start at age 10? I don't know, wherever,
So I was born and raised in Fresno, California.
Okay.
Lived there till I graduated high school.
All right.
Went to Abilene Christian. So
wait, how does Fresno State to Abilene Christian connect?
Not Fresno State. But I never went to Fresno State.
No. I mean, living in Fresno, California, how do you pick Abilene Christian?
My dad went there for 2 weeks. But I had a lot of friends from church growing up that went there. And
are you Church of Christ?
I grew up Church of Christ,
okay. Yeah. I grew up Church of Christ.
Oh, you did?
And we funneled.
We have all this in common. I had no idea.
It was like
Cancer, Church of Christ.
Yeah. So South MacArthur, Church of Christ, and Irving was like an ACU funnel. Like just... everybody went to ACU. So
yeah, so that's how I ended up there. My parents thought I'd be a good kid if I went to ACU, and I had which that was a bad bet, but I had a friend that was a year older than me that went there, and so my parents sent me out there a couple times my senior year of high school, and he sold me on it. So
yeah. That's
how I ended up there, and then I've been in Texas ever since.
So ACU too, they kind of have they got some rules, right? Like you got curfew. I don't know if they still have these things, but
I'm not sure how it is now. When I was there, you had to live in the dorm freshman and sophomore year. Freshman year, you had a curfew. I can't remember if it was on the weekends too or just during the week.
Yeah.
Sophomore year, no curfew.
Do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's what. So I remember a lot of people from Irving would go to ACU and then they would come back because they broke the rules. So, but okay, ACU, you study accounting. Yeah. What made you want to do accounting?
So I didn't start at it. I started just a general business major, and then when I had taken different business classes, accounting you could actually get to an answer.
Yeah.
And so versus marketing or management, it was more theoretical.
Yeah.
And so in a classroom setting, I was drawn to accounting. And then Big Four is good at coming in and convincing people that this is the path to success. Just come do. And so I really had bought into that. Got my the 5-year master's program, got my CPA, and started in public accounting.
So the Big Four lured you in. Mm-hmm. Which one got you?
EY.
All right. So they get you. Where do they move you to?
And then they give you part of the luring process is they give you these internships where I think it back then it was like $26 an hour. Who knows what it is now?
Oh, so that's pretty.
Then in 2011, 2012, $26 an hour was big money. You know,
for an intern, that's nuts.
Now you can make that babysitting now.
Yeah,
but like I used to deliver furniture for $10 an hour, so $26 an hour to get in some spreadsheets seemed pretty appealing.
Yeah.
So the draw to accounting of getting to an answer in a classroom setting just didn't translate to what it's like being in accounting in the real world.
Yeah.
And I quickly realized I need to play the game, not keep score. And I lasted a little more than a year and I was gone.
I like how you describe being drawn to accounting as getting to an answer, because I've told, like when my nephew was going to college, he was going to major in business. I go, do finance or accounting. I feel like you'll figure out marketing and management by doing.
What are you going to teach a 19-year-old about management in a classroom? It's
yeah, that's kind of an experience-driven thing. Because I mean, you're still. I'm 45. I'm still learning as a manager. You know,
right?
Yeah, but I think finance and accounting is like, to your point, it gets to an answer. It has a very finite, thing. And
it's right or wrong versus these theoretical concepts.
Right. And now that I look back on it too, I was kind of like, tech had like a 5-year program where you get your CPA as well. I'm like, I wish I would have done that. Like, cause my degree's in finance, but like, I wish I would have gotten a CPA. And so I told him, I was like, man, I think you should probably, honestly, now I look back, my opinion is maybe get your CPA, because you learn all the finance part of it as well. For the most, I would assume for the most part.
It's a good, I wouldn't change anything looking back. I'm glad I have the background, but I'm glad I got out quick.
Yeah. So EY for a year. Where was that, in Dallas?
I was actually out of our Fort Worth office. Okay. And then, but I worked on Dallas clients for most of the time. And then,
Who uses the Big Four? Just big publicly traded companies?
So most publicly traded companies do. And then certain banks will make you, if you want to go public, you often will use Big Four. And that's, if you're doing people's taxes, you're helping them save money. You're kind of, they want your help. Auditing which is what I did. It's just it's a forced expense that either the government or your bank's making you do.
Yeah.
And look, I no negativity towards that. It just wasn't for me. I went in, going into people's offices and asking them all these questions. I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we just hired an auditor for our fund, and so we'll be going through our first audit here pretty soon.
Yeah. So you it's just something you have to do.
Yeah.
It's not like these auditors are going to come in and take you from A to Z.
Yeah. So where do you go after EY?
I went from EY to Hold Lunsford Commercial.
So what made you think, hey, I need to go into commercial real estate?
So I actually had interned with Hold Lunsford in college.
Okay. He's big.
He's an ACU guy. Yep. And so back then, Holt actually drove down to Abilene and did the interviews himself. So I think it was my junior year in the spring, I interviewed and got a summer internship. And then I had kept in touch with him, and I reached out. I ran into him at a wedding, I think, and we got lunch. And I was like, hey, I hate my job. I don't know what to do. And then he was like, well, why don't you come talk with us? I went and met with several divisions at the company, and they offered me a job, and I took it immediately. So I have a little bit of an atypical path, and I didn't go meet with 20 different firms. And, you know, it seemed most people, when they get in, they know someone, and they're like, hey, I don't have a job for you, but here's 20 people to reach out. I didn't do any of that. I kind of lucked into it. And my second busy season was about to start. And so the second I got an offer, I jumped.
Well, I mean, you're back to getting to the answer, right? So
yeah,
you just got right to it.
Yeah.
So when you go to start at Holt, you started in the Dallas office?
I did, yeah. And so I talked to, what drew me, I started in their Dallas office leasing division.
Office leasing.
Okay. Yeah. And I talked to industrial as well. What drew me to office wasn't anything about the product type. It was a new division at the company.
Yeah.
And I saw more upside and more learning opportunity to join something that was new and somewhat chaotic at the time.
Yeah.
That was very appealing to me versus this well-oiled machine that was what they had built their brand on from the beginning.
And so it was mainly landlord representation?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what, did you work all over the Dallas-Fort Worth market, or did you kind of focus in a couple pockets?
75 was my main focus. And then had some worked on a handful of projects on the tollway and other places as well. But 75 was my focus.
And so this is 2011, right? 2012?
No. So I graduated college in 2013, master's in 2014.
Okay.
So I started it with Holt 1st January of 2016.
Okay. So 16. So office is still doing good. Like
I didn't know any different. Right. I didn't know anything about office. I just was excited to not be sitting at a plastic table in the auditor's room at 2 a.m. But yeah, so the market was good.
Yeah.
But I don't think office was ever what some of these other asset classes have gotten like in the past few years.
Yeah.
It was always a grind.
Yeah. No, so you're leasing office space, you're pitching office building owners, take over their leasing for them. And then at some point you get down to Houston, huh?
Yeah. So after 4 years in Dallas, I was presented the opportunity to go. They had an industrial group down there, and I had the opportunity to go start the office group. And so I moved to Houston. Well, first of all, my wife grew up in DFW. And so when I was talking to him about this, there's no shot my wife's going to move to Houston.
Yeah. That's a big ask.
Dallas people hate Houston and vice versa. Yeah. So shockingly, she was on board. And so we moved to Houston February of 2020. We had a baby 2 weeks later. And then when we left the hospital, COVID hit. So moved to Houston 2 weeks before COVID to start an office leasing business. Just perfect timing.
Oh my gosh. So what did you do for the first year?
So when I got there, I put a 5-mile radius of office buildings within a 5-mile radius of our office. And I went through, deleted anyone who leased in-house, and just started calling every owner.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit. I had picked up one listing in the first 2 weeks before we went to the hospital. Got back and just continued, and found a way to survive.
Yeah. It's tough.
It was tough, but I think worked really hard, and a lot of people just kind of took a year off.
So you started the office division. So did you have a couple dudes under you at that time? One. Okay.
Yep.
So did you end up growing that team?
Yeah.
At some point?
Yeah.
Start getting some traction?
Yep. We got up to 4 on the office team, and then I co-led the office with the industrial head.
Yeah.
We were up I think 15 people, but including property management as well.
Yeah. And so you're in a 5-mile radius. What part of Houston is this in?
West Houston. So Beltway and I-10.
Okay. So that's kind of the area you want to be in anyways, right? So
I would equate it to Tollway and 635.
Yeah, exactly. So you get the office leasing division going, but was it 23 or 22? Did you decide to start Aspire?
Early 23.
Early 23. So
April first week of April of 2023 is when I started.
Yeah. So you probably leased the largest office space for someone's first time office, right? And don't you have like a 10,000 foot office?
We are in a big space. Yeah. We're just parked for now.
Yeah. No. So did you start Aspire with anybody? Did you by yourself?
There was one guy with me.
Yeah. Did he come from Hold Lunsford? Or did he come from another shop? So
yeah.
And then so Aspire, I'd say your kind of calling card is like you're a social media real estate company.
Yeah. So day one when I started, I didn't even know if I had no aspirations to build a big brokerage. My plan was literally, we're going to do some deals. So I can feed my family while I figure out what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And then one thing led to another, and we just kept growing without really trying.
Yeah.
The market just kind of told me that there's a need for a new way of thinking in the industry.
Yeah.
And so at first I didn't know what that was going to look like. And then I had been on social media for a long time as an observer. And then I was like, okay, this is, because like if I'm going to build a brokerage, the market doesn't need another just run-of-the-mill brokerage. I don't want to go compete doing the same thing as all these people, all these great firms with lots of money and lots of resources.
Yeah.
How do I play a different game? And so that's where social media comes in. And so we're trying to build the first social media-based commercial real estate services firm.
And is that based on just a marketing and lead generation standpoint, or is there another aspect to it?
So this is a long process to do what I'm talking about. But I've seen what people have used social media for in other industries, and no one has really occupied that space in commercial real estate. Now, there are lots of commercial real estate brokers and other people that do a great job marketing themselves and building a personal brand online. But there's no company that exists and as one of its value propositions to agents, foster and help you do that. And so the conventional way is company brand drives everything.
Yeah. Your business card will kind of dictate the kind of clients you have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I see that changing in the future, and it's going to be the personal brands that drive the company brands. And so that's really and so first step is you have to build distribution.
Yeah.
Which takes a lot of time and takes a lot of effort. But once you have distribution, then we're going to use it to market our properties. We're going to use it to market ourselves to attract agents, and we're going to use it to help our agents build their own book of business through modern platforms.
So as far as distribution, that's going to be the different platforms that you're using, right? YouTube, X.
Yeah.
Instagram,
And so
LinkedIn.
To date, my efforts have been focused on X.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate to have a conversation with one of the big guys, head of content, someone with over 500,000 followers.
Mm-hmm.
And what the advice they gave me was focus on one and get good at that, and then go to others.
Yeah.
If you try to do everything at once, it's going to be too difficult. And so that's what I've been focused on. And so this year I've got about 38 million impressions on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
I've had roughly 250,000 people have viewed my profile.
Mm-hmm.
And so where do you go from there?
Yeah. How do you monetize that into a real world transaction?
Yeah. And so actually today, our first transaction from Twitter closed.
Oh, really?
X, Twitter. Oh, I don't know what
call it Twitter.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
So $30,000 of revenue directly from Twitter, and
so that's probably, compared to the time you put in right now, it's probably a loss leader, right?
For sure.
Yeah. So loss leader, but now you still have the established platform, and you can go. I mean, we funded a deal off Twitter. You know, we did a loan in Massachusetts, and I can't say that state. I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't do it. I just give up. Say Mass.
So it's kind of like when you're starting. I picture it as I'm starting over.
Yeah.
So I've really been active for about 9-10 months. Okay.
Yeah.
So picture me as someone who's been in the commercial real estate business for 10 months with this new strategy. Now, thankfully we have a large book of business through traditional means.
Yeah.
We've got about 4 million square feet that we lease, and we do a handful of other we have a handful of other projects besides leasing as well that we're working on.
Yeah.
And so that kind of funds all of it. But it takes time to build these you're building people get to know you over time. And so just all these people you're calling on when you first get in the industry, what all has it's been a loss leader for the first 10 months, right?
So you're on track. I would say you're on track, right? New agent gets in the business, starts making calls. 10 months in, closes his first $30,000 fee. That's probably about on track.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if you break down, so if my profile's been viewed 250,000 times, if 90% of those people think I'm an idiot, there's 25,000 people that didn't. And that's a lot of people. If 1%, if there's a chance to do business with 1%, that's 2,500. And so my thesis is over time, and as you get better at, because everyone has stories to tell. Literally everybody has information that people want to hear and read about.
Yeah,
you have to learn how to articulate that on the internet. It's very it's no different than learning anything. And so I am learning it right now, and I have this very strong belief that it's going to pay off. I can't say, Jeremy, here's how the
you can't do a model on it.
No,
but
it's just a bet.
I think it's also like, it's almost like you're forming a band in a way. You're going to be this sound. You're going to be this thought leader or whatever, whatever it is, but you kind of have you end up having a style that people like or don't like, you know what I mean? And that style is what drives it. And, we were talking before we started here, like, have we seen benefits of this podcast? to your point, I can't say, hey, here's this. Well, like I told you, we just got our first sponsor, right? So there's monetization.
In 5 years is when you're going to see the and that's the beauty of it. If you just most people get out of brokerage within the first 5 years, and they put all that work for nothing. It's the same thing.
So we get, I think we average, Isabella, like 800 people a week or something like that. So we average about 800 listeners per show, and shows are, there's probably, I'd call it 2 hours a week of content that gets put out. Well, that's 1,600 hours that people listen to us in a week.
You're top of mind.
Right.
And everyone knows what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so they come across some deal.
Yeah.
They're going to call you.
They're going to call you.
And the other thing, and from the brokerage standpoint, every brokerage firm, every team, individual, whatever, they have their own flavor, their own unique aspects about them that attracts them to their client. And so if you think about social media, it's so much more of an efficient way to just be yourself, and the people that resonates with will reach out to you versus you calling people and trying to get their attention to start the process of telling them who you are and hoping that what is unique about you, your team, or your firm resonates with them.
Yeah.
That you just go tell the story, and the people that it doesn't resonate with just won't reach out, and the people that it does, they will.
Yeah, it's I had a broker call me a couple weeks ago, and he goes, "Hey man, I haven't talked to you in a while, but I feel like I talk to you every day." So I was like, "Great, it's working."
Exactly.
It's I remember I had a guy in here. He asked me, he's like, "Why are you doing this?" I was like, "I'm doing it for two reasons. One, deal flow. Brand awareness. Two, I'm just kind of documenting things. I think it's kind of cool to document stuff now that we have all these tools to do it.
It's like a public journal.
Yeah, it is.
Like you can go back and look at stuff you said, and you think back. I this week I was going through like the first tweets I put out.
Yeah,
and just. It's so interesting to go and remembering like where my headspace was when I was writing that versus where it is now. And saying you could go in 24 months, you'll go listen to some episode where you're telling someone something you're dealing with. And it's something you would have never thought about again. But having that public journal, it's very insightful to monitor how your own thoughts and perspectives evolve over time.
So I also think it's cool that in the event something happens to me, my kids got hours of stuff to go back and dig through, you know? So I think that's kind of a cool aspect. So with being a social media driven firm, when you recruit agents, is part of the pitch, hey, we're going to help you develop your brand?
That is going to be the pitch.
Yeah.
I am figuring it out myself first.
Yeah.
And with the impressions and I think there's power in if you can have 250,000 eyeballs look at anything, and then looking back, I haven't been using that attention for anything.
Yeah.
I was just figuring out how to put out the information that people want to see.
Yeah.
And so grow that, keep getting better and better and better. And then document the playbook. And like I envision having a content team of, that will scale as we scale on the broker side. But yeah, like if you come, brokerages provide accounting, they provide a brand, they provide marketing, they provide all these resources that make your job easier. And so, of course, we're going to do all that, but that's just another that's another service offering that we're going to provide that it's going to be unique in the marketplace. To my knowledge, it does not exist. But I will say it's also hard to find brokers that want that. They're out there for sure, but and we're not ready for it yet. Like we have to get so much better at this before we can really offer it. But now I hired a head of operations that I met off Twitter. He lives in Maine. His name's Topher Stevenson.
Yeah,
guy's incredible. And he has a good Twitter following, and he is putting out content every day. His thing is AI and operations and marketing, but he's really become a known voice in the industry for AI. He spoke at CREI, he's spoke at ICSC. He's taught classes with Rod Santamassimo. So he's really made a name for himself, and that is what we want.
Yeah,
so that's huge. That I'm not the only one doing it. Like the team, I've encouraged and tried, but they don't want to. Most people don't want, and it's very hard. Like even for me personally, starting to put information out there in the wild, it's very hard. It's scary at first, and it takes a while to get comfortable with. It's like, am I really gonna share this private information about myself for the world to see? But it's just crazy what happens when you do. And so I'm glad that I'm not the only one doing it, and I hope we encourage others on the team to start. And for the people that are doing it, I hope that we are going to figure out, how do you take all this knowledge that I'm learning from trial by fire and create a platform that enables other people to do it.
So I guess to your point earlier, not everybody wants to do it. So eventually, for scalability, you've got to find people that want to do it.
Correct.
Right?
But I think the younger generation wants to do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of firms, I've heard a lot of feedback from people that work at big firms about they're against it. They're apathetic at best, in many cases against. I've got a good friend of mine is very high up at one of the public brokerages, and he's very into social media. And he told me the war stories of him and upper management, and they came up with this deal to where he can say what he wants, but the company's name can't be mentioned as part of it. And it was a very confrontational, very intense negotiation, if that's what you want to call it. It was there was a lot of conflict there. And so with his decades in the industry, he was able to negotiate something. What about a 24-year-old that is in their first 10 months of cold call? They're not going to let it happen.
No.
And so we are going to let it happen, and we're going to let people be themselves within, of course, moral, ethical, and professional standards. There's got to be standards, but as long as you meet those basic standards, you can promote yourself, and we will help you do it. And we will have this team of content creators, videographers, photographers, writers, and we're gonna if you desire it,
it's going to be there for you.
It's going to be there for you.
You know, it's interesting you say that about your buddy. One of the I call them the alphabet brokerages.
Yeah, that's a better way to say it.
Everyone I've tried to get to be on here from one of them, they're and it's not even it's not like I think they just don't even ask. They're like, no, I'm not even broaching that subject with upper management, which is weird. I don't know. There's good things in anonymity, and then on the flip side, there's, it's like the internet's been good and bad, right? Like the internet has had really good things. The internet has really bad things, especially with social media, right? We just experienced this friend of mine committed suicide the other day because he got in an incident and some guy on social media made it go viral without all the facts and sent, he has 2 million followers. Well, all these followers just, all this stuff,
man,
and got pretty bad. And so there's the bad side of it, right? There's the good side of it. I think there's more good than there is bad.
I couldn't agree more.
I think whatever marketplace you're dealing in, there's always going to be bad things. There's always going to be good things. But that you look at what that LP Whisperer guy did. This, that guy's apparently a serial shithead, I guess. But that's it's
a double-edged sword for sure.
I mean, things like that kind of worry me sometimes. Is like you put that out there, someone's not going to like you. It's just out of the 250,000 people, you only need 25,000 people to like you, right? Well, what if 10 of them hate you?
Yeah, people already don't like me. It's just part of it.
It's part of it. And so then you
just got to accept it. Nobody is everyone's cup of tea. So I am who I am. I'm going to put it out there. Some people are not going to like it.
Yeah.
And that is okay.
Yeah.
I will sleep fine at night because I have accepted that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just, that's the one thing I don't like about anonymous accounts though. Like if you're going to get in a public forum and, Twitter's it's like the largest water cooler. You know what I mean? Like it's everybody at the water cooler having a conversation, but I don't think you should be able to do it with the mask on.
Yeah. They could really use some mindful regulation on the anonymous. I mean, if you put your face to it, you should be able to. I mean, I like what Elon says. If it's legal, we allow it.
Yeah.
But like LP Whisper, that's not legal what he was doing.
Yeah.
And he's gotten. I mean, if Elon takes your account down, you've done something.
Yeah.
You've done something wrong.
Whatever happened? What was the final result of all that? Do you know? Like, did that guy get arrested? Did he get paid to take it down?
No, like Twitter took it down.
Okay.
So, I think Chris and Scott got
they got enough.
They got law enforcement involved, and I have no idea what the process is, but I imagine the FBI or whoever on the law enforcement side, if they contact Twitter and say, "Hey, we're investigate," I think that's when it becomes, this is not legal. We're taking it down.
Yeah. So
it's not that the account got bought. He tried to sell it.
Yeah.
But it says it's been suspended. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So your main platform is Twitter. Like, I got to imagine you got to put in time on a regular basis, just as you would cold calling or prospecting, to keep Twitter going.
Absolutely. I mean, and you got to be on there every day.
Yeah.
You've got to create your own content, and then you've got to engage with others.
Yeah. That's, I'm very bad at consistency on there. I show up like on randomly every 3 weeks and say something and then probably misspell it.
But look, I always say if it was easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah.
So, and it's a blessing it's not easy, because if you put in the work, it's just like brokerage or just like buying buildings or just like giving loans. Like if once you get really good at it, someone can't just come in and compete with you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, and what's unique about social media is it's like money can't even buy it.
Yeah.
Like, if you building relationships can't be done with money.
Yeah.
And so it takes time and effort and consistency over a long time horizon to get any value out of it. And so if you stick at it long enough, you have you have real value there.
So I like the idea that you're going to have the platform for the agents, because I've seen, like, well, I'll just give you my example for this is like, I make Will do social media stuff with me. Something happens to me, at least it kind of keeps going, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of one thing. Like Chris Powers, like he's the only thing. Something happens to Chris, like who's next? I don't know. Maybe put Andrea up there. She's pretty good. So, but like, so I don't know. I like the idea of intermingling people, because if something happens to somebody that is the figurehead of that, which is, then you got to have someone to step up and replace that.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone else in the company that should replace that is not bought into it, then we need
lots of people. I mean, and it's such a niche business. Like we need in every market that we're in,
mm-hmm.
which we're only in Houston right now, but we'll be in more. You got to have someone that is the office guy, the industrial guy, the retail guy on social media in every market, because the strategies and the types of content you need to make it's gonna vary, and that's why it's gonna be this team. It's gonna be this whole department that all they do is like, how do we make office content in Nashville or wherever we are.
Well, the good thing about that is then it opens you up to every asset class, because you kind of have to be in every asset class, because why not? If you're going out there for that many impressions and that many views, why don't you be able to service everybody that's looking at you, because you need to capitalize on all those leads, right? So
exactly. And that's another non-traditional aspect of what I'm trying to do is, normally if you look at other firms that have grown brokerages to different markets, they get huge in one market, and then they go to another, they get huge, and then they keep going.
Mm-hmm.
If it's driven through social media, you put it out, you put the content out there, it can be seen anywhere. And so you have to, if you're not in the geography, it's not any good. The relationship there's no value to it if you can't service it. And so that's why it's important to get into as many markets as possible quickly. But the playbook,
mm-hmm.
before we go anywhere, the playbook has to be a lot better developed than it is today.
Yeah.
And that's what I wake up every day working on.
So when do you think the playbook's done?
I think the playbook will be done in about a year.
Yeah.
I think next summer we'll be ready to start having those conversations. And I mentioned that there's not a lot of brokers don't want to put themselves out there. There also are a lot that do.
Yeah.
And we're talking to probably 7 different brokers right now in various markets from the East Coast to the West Coast. And they're watching and they're very intrigued on what we come up with. And I have to tell, I don't have anything for you now, but just know I will, and keep doing what you're doing.
So on the recruiting process for you, is it a go, no-go gauge? If you're like, hey, if you came over here, this is our platform. And they're like, I'm not into that. So do you even really pursue that anymore, that broker?
That's a good question. I don't know yet.
Yeah. Depends what his existing production is.
Yeah. Right now, I need someone that can right now I'm recruiting people that just already know how to do deals, because we have opportunity. We're leaving money on the table every day because there's deals we could be doing that we just don't have the capacity for.
Yeah.
And so particularly on industrial and retail and land. And so that's not part of our hiring criteria yet, but it will be.
So when you decided to go start Aspire, was this idea at the front of it?
No.
No.
I hadn't even thought about social media being a part of it.
You just knew you wanted to be on your own, because you actually talked to Jeff and Tom potentially about opening a Mercer Company office, right?
I did, yeah.
And but you knew you wanted to own your own shop. What'd your wife think about that? Women,
she was all about it.
That's good. Sometimes women get real nervous about security things like that, and that's a risk.
And I always wanted to start my own company. I just didn't know if I had what it takes.
Yeah.
Which, looking back, that's just a very limiting belief. But I'm thankful that through the set of circumstances that happened, I ended up getting the courage from wherever it came from.
Mm-hmm.
I know where it came from God, but he put me on this path to where he gave me the courage I needed, and I just did it without really a plan. And now 18 months later, this is definitely what I was born to do.
Yeah.
I wake up every day. I work a lot, but I don't consider any of it work. It's my life.
It's fun.
It's fun.
Yeah. That's what me and Will are texting all across the weekend, because it never shuts off. You know? It's John Andretti on Twitter.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm doing a deal with him right now.
He's great. Yeah. I found this thing on Twitter, and it had some girl just like snorting a rail of coke. And I sent it to Will. This is why I should probably type things out instead of use my phone. But I copied John on it. And I was like, I looked back at my messages and I was like, I go, John, that really wasn't meant for you, but that's what me and Will talk about, our addiction to doing real estate deals. They thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how me and Will are. We just, it's constant. It's, same with my brother. Like, my brother's calling me at 7 a.m. this morning. I've been a little under the weather, and I was like, I slept. And he's like, are you sleeping in? And I was like, yeah, I don't feel good today. He's like, real estate never sleeps. Get up. So,
well, you kind of have to have that obsession, because if you don't, just getting punched in the mouth and kicked in the teeth every day, you can't sustain it unless you have just that. You have to be a little, and there has to be a couple screws loose to start your own company and stick with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's tough. Well, I mean, you've probably found this, in 18 months, but the toughest aspect I always find is just employees. I mean, it's people. Dave Ramsey said, what business is easy till people get involved, but you can't do it without people. So, it's and it's a constant process, right? Like, you don't ever get it right. Like, you're always gonna make, I don't know, say bad hires, but you could have made better hires, or you know what I mean? Like, it's, at the time you thought it was the best thing you could do, right? And so then you get into it certain month or something like that, or certain year, and you're like, man, this isn't it,
Yeah, and to put that in perspective, 6 months in, 18 months in, I look back at some decisions I made 6 months in and 9 months in. It's like, wow, that was so dumb. But I had only been doing it for 6 months. Literally, out of my entire life, 6 months out of that entire life, I had been owning and running a business. Of course, I'm going to do stupid things.
Right.
And in 12 more months, I'll look back at things I'm doing today like, what an idiot.
Yeah.
But you just have to accept that you're going to make mistakes, and monitor for when you get information that will enable you to realize the mistakes you've made, and then you correct them. You get back up and keep going, and don't worry about the money you lost or the time you spent. It's part of it. You have to learn, and it costs money and making mistakes and wasting time to learn those lessons.
Yeah, experience is probably the best tool. So I mean, I've made business structures, I've made hires, I've made partnerships that have all failed miserably, and you just try to go get it right the next time. You probably screw it up again too, but you just keep going. So, well, what? So now, are you probably still the top producer at Aspire?
I am.
Okay.
I look, and I cannot wait for the day that that's not the case.
Yeah, because that's ideally where you got to get, right?
Yeah, I will get to where I'm not doing deals at all.
Yeah,
but that I'm nowhere near that point.
Yeah,
we do a lot of deals that I'm not involved in, and every day, week, and month, it's more of them, less of me, and I think the team's getting pretty good at knowing when they need to bring me in and when they don't.
Yeah.
And so we're on the right path. But yeah, to build a social media based commercial real estate firm, you can't be doing deals full time. I mean, I'm trying to learn a novel thing that I'm trying to create something that doesn't exist, and that just takes a lot of time, trial and error. And so I've got to prioritize to getting the time to figure it out and make those mistakes, and learn from them, improve, reiterate, and do it over again.
Yeah. Well, so what? And so you've hired a director of operations. He's in Maryland, Maine. So all virtual, I guess.
He'll come here. He's been here for about a month. He'll come here probably every 2-3 months. Mm-hmm. But this is another thing about social media. Our visions are aligned. Mm-hmm. He was running a 35-person firm there that has been around since I think the 70s, and part of why he was excited about the opportunity was because he believes in what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And a 40-50-year-old firm, just if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
And so how many people know how to have ran a 35 broker firm in the country that believe in what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
so through this crazy thing we call Twitter, like, we got to know each other, and now we work together. And so, yeah, and we're gonna have decentralized operations. We already do. Like, we have 4 people overseas that are doing all of our back office stuff. They all report to him. And so, like,
isn't Houston decentralized operations at some degree? It's so big.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, we've got people in the office every day, and we've got people that, one guy lives in Northwest Houston, and he kind of runs out of his house. Yeah. But my people that are 45 minutes away from these listings, they don't have to go show that space. He does it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you need people. There's value to having people spread out. Decentralized operations has a lot of advantages. You got to get together. You got to have that face-to-face too.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It's an all of the above approach.
Yeah. You're talking about meeting people on Twitter. That's where, we use Michael, the investments lawyer, off Twitter. Mm-hmm. He did all of our fund docs. But he was the first person. Like, me and Will had several conversations with several attorneys about starting a fund. And every time we hung up the phone or left that office, we just looked at each other like, the fuck did he just say? But Michael,
and Michael puts himself out there.
Yeah.
It resonated with you. You contact. It's so much more efficient for you, for him.
And so now we just use him for all things corporate too. So like, we had a JV with the family office on a deal. He negotiated the whole document,
Yeah. I met him at Reconvene.
Yeah.
We had a good long conversation. Super sharp guy.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize he went to Columbia. So he's an Ivy Leaguer. So
Twitter's a great place to find vendors. It
really is. That's been a big thing for me there. Did you enjoy Reconvene?
Loved it.
My life is so hard with the stage where my kids are at, and like I'd planned on going, and then that was homecoming week, and the homecoming parade was like on Wednesday. I was like, I ain't going.
Yeah,
screw it. I don't want to miss any of those things in my kids' life.
Right.
I'm on the horizon of when my kids are about, they're on their way out of my house, and so I'm like, I don't miss anything. I don't miss football. If you have something for me and there's a football game, sorry. Not happening.
Yeah.
If my daughter has a basketball game, I'll be there. Like,
there'll be plenty more conferences after your kids are away at college. So
I'll probably
commend you for putting your priorities in line.
So I got a marker for next year. If I can make it out there, I can just use it for next year. So if not, I'll just send Will. So
you should go to CREI next year too.
Where's that at?
So it's different place every year. This year it was in Atlanta. I'm actually head of ticket sales this coming year.
Okay, there you go. Little plug.
Yeah. And so it's going to be it's in Southern California. I'm blanking on which part. LA-ish.
Yeah.
But it's become known as a place for brokers, but it's really any commercial real estate professional that wants to leverage social media for their business should be there. Like strip mall guy spoke last year. We've got there were owners, developers, brokers. It's very much aligned. Joe Killinger, if you know him, he was there.
Who is that? I know that name.
I don't know him well. But he's a big YouTube guy, and he's got a podcast, I think.
Okay.
And so like, there's classes on LinkedIn. Class is the wrong, but like people that there's good podcasters, LinkedIn people, Instagram people, and they share like, here's how I use it for my business. And so it's and it can be learning how to use and Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. They're all, the algorithms are different, and so you learn you hear someone talk that's an expert on that platform, and you come up with all these ideas on how it can apply to your business. It's highly recommend.
So, okay, real quick, back to X. Is that something you think you can ever automate?
No.
I don't think so either. No. I think it's very personality driven. Like,
yep. Instagram will be like, I'll be in the videos. I won't be the one posting them.
Yeah.
Twitter, no one's gonna have my Twitter password.
Yeah.
It's Twitter is. It's a conversation. I mean, it's like a group text with the whole world invited.
Yeah.
And so you can't outsource group text with your buddies.
Yeah.
You can't outsource conversations and building relationships with people on X. And, we talked about we've done one deal in 10 months, whatever, and loss leader. Another thing I have so many like close friends from Twitter and from 10 months.
Yeah.
And who knows who knows where those relationships lead over the long term.
Right.
But it's just so much fun to meet all these and the algorithm gives you what you put in terms of, so like I like real estate and I like business. That's what I talk about on there. And so, and the people that see it and I interact with, and then the people that it puts their stuff in front of me are about real estate and business. And so this crazy algorithm, like in a roundabout way, it puts you in front of all these potential friends that are obsessed with the same things you are.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go to dinner with some friends or church, like that's all, or the football game, like that's all great. But what are the chances you're going to meet someone that's obsessed with commercial real estate and live, eat, and breathe it? On Twitter, it's like everyone
So I wanted to say something I've noticed that's very interesting. Some of these social media influencers, or I guess people call them grifters or whatever these guys are, they claim to be business experts or something like that. Let's say they have a really big like Facebook or Instagram following. And then like I've seen a lot of them that have a Twitter and they have 10,000 followers on Twitter. And they make a post and they get like no comments, no likes. So it's, and I'm talking specifically about people that are kind of just full of shit. You know what I mean? They're probably like some online coaching thing that they're selling or some bullshit service. But I think when you go into the Twitter space, like you've got, I don't want to say these people aren't on Instagram or other feeds, but I think that the intellectual capacity is a lot higher on Twitter. So like stuff like bullshit like that gets sniffed out pretty quick. But it's interesting if you look at any of those personalities that maybe are in your feed on Instagram, go look at them on Twitter, and I guarantee they have a bunch of followers because they somehow.
Well, that's how you can know if someone's really because followers can be bought.
Yeah.
Like fake followers.
Yeah.
And so, but fake followers can engage.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe they'll figure, but you can't fake genuine.
You can't fake genuine
engagement. You can't fake genuine engagement.
Yeah.
And so, if someone has 100,000 followers and no one's commenting on their posts, guess what? They don't really have 100,000 followers.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting because I see some of these guys on Instagram, and then I was like, let me see their Twitter profile, and it's a lot of nothing. But I think over there it takes true mental capacity,
right?
Versus, hey, here's a car, here's me on a trip or whatever, So
yeah, I have no idea what it takes on Instagram.
We haven't figured it out. We've high centered at like 900 people.
That's a different world over there.
Yeah, it is. Well, let me get into the brokerage side of things here for a second. So you've had to do the brokerage side for a long time, still are. What's one of your more awkward cold call or awkward situations you've been in on a tour or anything like that? The Craziest Cold Call Story is proudly sponsored by First Citizens Bank. First Citizens excels at providing fixed rate financing up to 85% for owner-user properties, including office, medical, and industrial.
A couple come to mind. I think it was my first week, definitely first month, pretty sure my first week in the business, I was cold calling, and I walked the owner office in the building, and I walked into their office like they were anyone else and said, hey, we've got this building down the street. Would you like to come take a look? And so that was a fun conversation after I got escorted out to my car. And, but yeah, so I learned to make sure you don't walk into the owner's office when you're cold calling in a building.
When you're trying to pull tenants out.
Yeah. And then a different type of interesting cold call. So there was this guy that I was calling on. This was in Houston. I had called on him for a year. He was like, if you put the profile of who my clients are, he fit it perfectly, and he was the size of the opportunity was big. I called him over and over. Never got any response whatsoever. Then I am on a ski trip in Park City, and I actually had the skiing accident I referenced at the beginning. That was the day before. So I had tore my ACL in this accident. I like couldn't even walk. But we go to brunch in this hotel in Park City, and he's sitting there. And I'm on crutches. I don't say anything to him that day, but then I reach out to him after, and it was on Easter. It was like Easter day. It was Easter brunch.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I saw you at XYZ. Didn't want to disturb you while you were enjoying Easter brunch with your family, but when you're back in Houston, I'd love to get together.
Yeah.
And then he still didn't respond. And then I did one more, and then he responded to that, met with him, and the rest is history. Done a ton of business together since. But
so what is he, an office leasing tenant, or is he an owner?
He's an owner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Yeah, no, you got to chase guys sometimes.
Yep.
We own I own a piece of a roofing company, and we had a salesperson, and she was like, yeah, I called them. They just didn't call me back. Do you think you could call them and like tell them to call me back? Because it's like, I could probably do that. And I kind of lost it. I looked at her and I was like, you call them every month for the next 12 months. You go over there every month for the next 12 months. And if they won't talk to you, maybe I'll call them, but then keep calling them. Like,
bring them tacos in the morning.
Do something.
Yeah.
But they didn't call me back. I was like, that's so weak sauce. So
what do they say? 80 or 90% of sales are made between the 5th and 12th attempt. I don't know how true that is, but it probably is.
There's some stat like that. We'll have it on the TV next time. We can look it up. But yeah, no, I think it's it takes almost like 20 times for someone to develop the know, like, and trust factor with somebody, So you're getting ahead of the game with that, with social media.
It's so much more efficient.
Yeah, no, it is. You
just tell the world who you are and what you do.
So, but yeah, no, you have to, it doesn't happen overnight. Nothing happens overnight. It's a grind, we wanted to do our debt fund 2 years ago. Like 2 years ago, we were having a meeting, me and Will. I was like, dude, I want to raise this debt fund. He goes, I know a guy that did one. Let's go talk to him. And, we're just bouncing around, talking to people on the fund. And honestly, it didn't really come together till a buddy of mine, he kind of was like, hey man, would y'all loan some money on some house flipper stuff? And I was like, yeah, maybe. And he started shoving all this activity down our throat. And I was like, and I finally just running the math side of it, running a tax return for a $300,000 loan. Like, you just zap out all the profit in a deal with the operational cost of it. And I was like, hey, we got to start a fund. So I was like, he kind of pushed us into starting a fund. Finding Michael then finally found us an attorney that could start us a fund. And then, away we go. But that was, we started a fund. Yeah, we closed it in July, but that was probably 2.5 years in the making that, it took to really get there. So
if it was easy, everyone would do it.
If it was easy, everyone would do it. So, well, what's one of the most unique deals you've ever pulled off? Or one that's just memorable. It doesn't have to be unique or anything, but like one you're like, man, that was a defining moment for me. Big or small? I've heard both.
I will always look back at this deal as a defining moment. So when I got into the business, there was this horrible building that that was a listing, and nobody. The rents were 12 gross, and there was no bidders at that number. It was on Webb Chapel Road, Fike and Webb Chapel, like this 15,000 foot building built in like 1980. Hadn't been touched since. And so I was like, you want to lease it? Sure, I'll give it a try. So by the grace of God, I found some tenants to go into this building. And then once it was leased up, this group came in and bought it. And then I got to know that group that bought it well, and they told me what they were trying to do. Then I had another listing, a much nicer building. I was like, you're describing this building you want to buy, the type of building. I've got this building that meets that criteria, and the owner wants out. You want to make a run at it?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And so they made an offer, did it 3-4 months later, the deal closes. It was a $250,000 fee total.
Yeah.
That was, I was not making a ton of money at the time. That was a defining moment in my career, but more than the money or any of that, it was, you never know where something will lead.
Yeah.
And particularly, and I like to tell this story to young people in the business. Like, any opportunity, just take it. Don't worry about your return on time. You need to learn how to transact.
Yeah.
Those deals that I did in that building at 12 gross, I learned. It was part of the process of learning how to do a deal. And then by getting that education, you happen to stumble upon this huge opportunity. And that's how this business works. Like you've got to get in the game, and you give it your all on every transaction, and just be agnostic to what the deal size is or what your commission's going to be. Just provide good service, give it your all, and the rest works itself out. That's been my experience.
So learning how to transact, I think that's something a lot of brokers don't have right now, because they got in the business when you didn't have to do anything to transact. And now it's a tougher market, and you have to know how to put a transaction together. I was texting yesterday morning with a pretty large sponsor here in Dallas, and I was like, hey man, who do you like leasing brokers and this, classification? And he was like, none of them really. Like, no one's wowed me. He goes, no, it doesn't seem like anyone knows how to like get a deal done. And I used to do a ton of leasing for this guy. And I was like, I'm thinking about suiting back up and get this motherfucker done. And he goes, get you a junior. I'll hire you to do all my stuff. He's like, you could probably do it half. I was like, but I had to learn to transact in 2010 when it was like, like a 12. We were giving industrial buildings away back in 2010. You know what I mean? You're same to your $12 gross POS on Webb Chapel, right? Like, I sold buildings without roofs on them, like on Halifax Street, which is the grossest street in Dallas. Like, but like learning to just put those deals together is so crucial. And I think that's something that, man, to your point, just taking these rando assignments, you're not going to make them all. You're going to blow some time. But man, if you can put some of those harder deals together, then it all gels together in the end. So I think that's some good advice for people to hear right now, that, hey, it's not going to be, oh, here's the LOI. Do you want to just take it? What happened? Everybody used to just accept the LOI. It's like, no, bro. Like, these things are going to get grinded on now, so.
Yeah, well, unlike industrial brokers that got into the business since 2020,
yeah.
we never had that in office ever. We're getting better now. Like things are getting better finally.
Yeah. Things are getting worse for us right now. Vacancies up. Rents don't go up forever. Whoever thought that.
These small businesses, at some point, they're just gonna.
We're so out on Small Bay. Everybody's like, oh, I'm in a Small Bay park. I'm like, dog, the gig is up on those things. So
those
probably
the
bode well for me if I want to sell my shit.
There's only so much margin to take. Because at the end of the day, if you're a landlord and you're increasing rents, there has to be margin in the tenants for you to raise those rents. And at some point, it's just going to be gone.
So I had a tenant, they're in 17,000 feet. I guess that's shallow bay-ish or whatever. They're in 17,000 feet. I did the renewal earlier this year, client of mine. They went from 550 to 1050 triple net. It was an $85,000 delta. I was like, you just took the small business owner's salary out of this deal. You know?
Yeah.
Like, what's the excitement to come to work every day?
Mm-hmm.
You know? So, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting thing in industrial. I think rents are definitely going to soften. I think I think cap rates are going to expand, you know? Well, they've already expanded a lot, but I don't think they're going to compress back down to where they were. Like, industrial buildings selling sub 4 cap stuff. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So what like habits and routines you into?
So my schedule right now, I wake up at about 6:45.
Mm-hmm.
I take my son to school, drop him off at 7:45, get to the office at 8. Come home at about 5:30, eat dinner, spend some time with the family, and then work from 7:30 to 10:30, 11:30. So to answer your question, right now, it's the habits are you give it everything you've got every day. If you want to build a business, it's the price you pay.
Yeah.
And if I worked 40 hours a week, I wouldn't have made it to this point, and I certainly wouldn't have any chance of achieving the goals that we've been talking about here. And sorry, go ahead.
Do you work well at night? Like, do you get some? Is that like when your creativeness kind of gets going?
It's a problem.
Yeah,
like because sometimes I'll look up and I have so much energy at night.
Yeah.
I've tried the 5 a.m. thing. I just wasn't, my natural clock just does not like the morning.
Yeah.
But at 9:30 p.m., I am in my element.
Yeah.
And I could just go and I have to force myself to stop. And then the problem is if I quit working at 11, like I'm so like
amped up.
It takes me an hour and a half to calm down.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm a morning person because I just by 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, I'm falling asleep. Maybe it's because I got up in the morning, but like I do like sleeping in a little bit every now and then. That's what, you know, I was thinking my wife's kind of a night owl and I was like, maybe whenever our kids leave, I'll switch my schedule and we'll just stay up all night and sleep in. Because that used to be my life when I was running my studio. That's all I did. I'd stay up all night. So, but, well, what about, you got a favorite book you like that was kind of a game changer for you? You can't say the Bible.
So I always go back to Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Uh-huh.
Robert Kiyosaki's gone crazy. But the concepts in that book are timeless.
Yeah.
And so when I was in college, I had, from all the money I had saved up from delivering furniture growing up, from my $25 an hour internship, and then when they have to pay you overtime as an intern. So what is that? You know, $38 an hour.
Right.
So I was about to buy a truck, a brand new pickup truck when I graduated college. And I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and bought a used Honda Civic for $10,000 and used the money on a down payment for a house. Bought a house, had found 2 buddies that lived in the 2 spare bedrooms, lived for free, and then owned that house for a long time. And like that one deal kind of, appreciation and the money I saved while living for free, and then the appreciation and the small amount of wealth relatively that I generated from that. It gave me a lot more options in life.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I wouldn't have done that. And it's just and what I don't like about Rich Dad Poor Dad is it makes it seem like anyone can be a business owner, which just isn't true.
Yeah.
Like you really, like we were talking, you got to have a screw or two loose and most people want that security and predictability that you don't get as a business owner. But it does, the concept of having money work for you instead of only working for money, I think is important for anybody, no matter what you do, whether you're an employee or a business owner or anything in between. Like that the sooner you understand that you have to figure out how to have money work for you, the better off you'll be.
Yeah. No, it's the rich dad, he doesn't think you should own a house, right? Or you should rent a house. Is that part of that? Or is that
he does say that. I can't remember if that book says that or not.
That's always like a great tweet someone loves to put up and get the hot takes on it.
One of my biggest tweets ever got 700 something thousand impressions was about I wrote a note to my landlord. Like, I want to thank my landlord for his generosity, for letting me just pay him rent every month and be able to have all this capital to invest in my business. I'm a big believer in renting.
Yeah.
But rent or own, like your house it's a consumer good.
Mm-hmm.
And so do not see your house as an investment. Like when you're buying industrial deals, like it's all about the numbers and what makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you match where your wife wants to live and your kids going to school and the size? How do you match all that with like an investment thesis? It is a consumer good, whether you own or rent. See it as a consumer good. If it goes up in value, great.
Yeah.
But build wealth outside of your primary residence. That's my. We'll own a house eventually. Right now, I like the liquidity.
Yeah.
But when we buy, it will be purely because we don't want to deal with a landlord. We want to have the flexibility. It will be a consumption. It's consumption.
Yeah.
It's not investment.
Yeah, I call my house the best real estate deal I never meant to make because it's just gone up so much. But I don't look at it. I look at it as I don't know. I don't look at it as a negative that some people do. I don't really look at it as much of an investment either because it's not like my wife's going to let me go yank out a bunch of equity to go buy real estate deals with it.
Hey, honey, our mortgage just went up.
Yeah, but guess what? Trust me on this one. So it's not really accessible. So
well, and look, the what's happened with housing prices over the past 10 years,
mm-hmm.
like great for anyone that's realized that upside, but that's not the norm. And particularly, again, it's a consumer good that you have a chance of making a bunch of money on.
Yeah.
But don't let your primary residence get in the way of whatever you're trying to do and thinking that that's going to be what gets you there.
Yeah.
It's just not a good bet in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. So what's something about Brandon Avedikian that no one really knows?
It's a good question. I can get pretty obsessive about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe people know that. Maybe it's obvious, but like when I set my mind to something,
mm-hmm.
I get a little, maybe even psychotic about it, and I just like I can focus for crazy amount of time over and over again without getting burnt out. You know, growing up, it was tennis, and then now it's business.
Yeah.
And so I just love it.
Hyper focus is your superpower.
It's a gift and a curse.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish I could just like relax, but
I don't have any social media on my phone or my email.
Really?
Mm-mm.
Are you a flip phone guy?
No, I could be though. I really could be. Like, I could go flip phone, but I have to text. And if I had to like text on a flip phone, I think I'd lose my mind. But yeah, I just got it all off of there. I have an iPad at home, and that's where I'll look at social media, pick it up, put it down. But
that's good.
Took it all off my phone.
Got to have boundaries.
Yeah. Emails just never end. So, well, I wanted to touch on this. You're in town for something kind of special. So, why don't you tell us why you're here up in Dallas?
Yeah. So my best friend from college, Casey Duncombe, passed away from brain cancer 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so there's an annual golf tournament in his honor. It's tomorrow. And so, always a emotional time of year. And, Casey was very passionate about, building homes in Honduras. Mm-hmm. And so, and he would go there all the time. And
how did he get into that?
Who knows?
Yeah.
He was a wild, crazy guy that got into all kinds of things, but that he was super passionate about it. And so, that's where the money goes, is to build homes in Honduras. And so we raise the money at this tournament, and then a group of guys go to Honduras in the spring and provide the labor. So this is the materials, and then we do the labor. And
that's cool. So have you gone to Honduras and built?
I did.
Yeah.
I did not go this year because of my hip surgery, but I hope to be back next year.
Back swinging the hammer.
Yep.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so it's amazing how just to see what God can do out of a tragedy sometimes. Mm-hmm. Obviously everybody misses Casey, and we wish he was still here, but like at this tournament every year, just like there's people that get together and there's relationships that are built that if it weren't for this, they would no longer be in touch. And I know he's looking down and he's smiling.
Well, y'all created a legacy for him. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So,
well, this is good having you, man. I'm glad you made it up here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Glad we could finally make it work. And love what you're doing, and look forward to doing business together here.
Absolutely.
One way or another.
Told Will we got to put more time in Houston if we want to make it happen. We got real lazy with it. So
hey, you guys got a lot on your plate.
Yeah, no, but thanks for coming up, man. I'm glad we got to do it. I'm glad we got to get together. From the first time I met you, I was like, oh man, you're my kind of guy. Like I'll call you randomly, and then I'll see you on Twitter all the time, and so I'm glad that we've got to develop a relationship over here about the last 12 months. So
yeah.
But I really like what you're doing with the social media space. I think we're in the second or third inning of that in commercial real estate. And I think you're going to be able to capitalize on a market and grow a business that is all out there for you. And so I'm really excited to watch you grow. So
appreciate it. All I can promise is I'm going to give it my all.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, Brandon Avedikian, everybody. Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.